Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. This is my recap for the anime Buchigiri. If you like my recaps, please consider subscribing. The story begins as some spineless and cowardly nerd named Ara practices talking to girls in a mirror. Elsewhere, some guys wake up in a shrine after a long night of drinking, but become terrified when something begins to shake. One of these losers thinks it might be the legend of what they call a honkai person being sealed there, but they don't stick around to find out when they hear a growling noise. A honkai person is defined as one who finds a heart that doesn't flee. In the age of samurai, fighters who threw away their sword and put down their helmet emerged. These fighters fought to reach the top with nothing but their honkai, so they are known as honkai people. Ara arrives at his first day at school, where he is told that the Minato Kai and Shiguma squad compete against each other for the top spot. This is clearly demonstrated outside as two students fight it out. It's clear that Ara couldn't be less interested in all the fighting, and he only wants to know if there are any cuties in his class. The instructor inappropriately assures him that there are, but Ara quickly finds out that his class is actually filled with some dangerous looking guys. Everyone in this dirty, messed up classroom is pretty disinterested in Ara when he introduces himself, but Ara is amazed to see that there is one girl that he likes. She is so perfect to him that he compares her to a gentle quail egg in the chaos of a bowl of stir fry. This girl quickly introduces herself as Maharu, and Ara instantly falls in love with her. Outside, the guy named Madakara beats up his opponent and wins the fight. When class finally ends, Maharu surprisingly asks Ara if he would like to walk home together. Our boy of course accepts without hesitation, so Maharu tells him that she will wait by the gate. Ara has prepared his entire life for this very moment, so he rushes off in the manliest way possible. Some green-headed dude trips him though, and his buddy joins in to intimidate Ara. Ara uses the oldest trick in the book to get away, but he quickly runs into the stone wall that is Madakara. The other bullies close in on him, so Ara realizes that he's about to get beat up. Just then, Madakara surprisingly already knows Ara's name, but Ara doesn't recognize him. Ara thinks real hard about his name, even though his stomach is beginning to hurt, and eventually remembers that they were close friends when they were younger. Ara seemed to be like an older brother to Madakara, and Madakara couldn't be happier to see him after 5 years. Madakara tells his goons that Ara is his old buddy, and they used to train together to become honkai people. He explains that Ara was always really strong, but the goons don't see it. Madakara wants him to hang out with them, but Ara doesn't seem to share the enthusiasm for meeting again, and leaves. Ara thinks that he has some seriously bad luck for seeing Madakara again. He rushes off to meet with his future wife, but unfortunately she is long gone. The dweebs from earlier eat at the restaurant Ara lives in, and he tells his nosy mom that he met a nice quail egg. Ara takes over the kitchen for a while, and overhears the guys talking about what might have been sealed in the shrine. At the Shiguma base, the guy that Madakara beat up apologizes to his squad's leader for losing. This guy explains that Madakara was surprisingly a nice guy, and the leader makes a joke about him falling in love. The leader quickly stops all the laughing with a kick to this guy's face, and this guy with a bunch of piercings just continues to enjoy his meal. At night, Ara thinks about his past with Madakara and how he once just watched his old friend get bullied. The next day, the poor teacher tries to teach this group of hoodlums, and Ara wonders where his crush is. At lunch, he prepares to eat his heartfelt meal and is shocked to find Maharu there. Maharu explains that she is skipping class, and Ara apologizes for not meeting with her the day before. She doesn't care at all and awkwardly asks if they could become friends. Of course, Ara jumps at the opportunity, and this really forward girl asks him to hang out on Saturday. Madakara calls out to him from below, and his green-headed buddy wonders if Ara is really that strong. Madakara explains that Ara is strong, brave, and cool, and he really admires him. This green dude is clearly jealous and doesn't understand at all. Goldilocks notices that Ara is talking to Maharu, so he determines that he needs to urgently tell Madakara about this, but Greenhead stops him. He thinks things would be more interesting this way, and they should just let their school's tradition play out. At some shop, Ara gets excited to have picked out the perfect stone to carve, but the bullies surprisingly arrive and take him to an arcade. Greenhead wants them to get along from now on, but Ara's stomach begins to hurt again. Broccoli Hair sees that trouble has arrived, so he gets his ponytailed friend out of there. Ara wins his game, but some dudes in white notice that Ara isn't part of the Minato or Shiguma gangs. Ara points out that he would never take part in stuff like that, but that proves to be the wrong answer. These guys can't believe that he would just walk in the arcade so comfortably without being part of a gang, and point out to him that this is their turf. Ara tries to get away, but the guys stop him as he is their 100th catch. Ara does manage to get away, albeit without most of his clothes, but the guys continue to chase him as they want to rob him of everything. His so-called new friends have a good laugh, and Greenhead realizes that he was right, and Ara isn't tough at all. With few places to run, Ara finds himself taking shelter inside the shrine. As the bullies try to break in, Ara knocks over one of the sealed boxes, and a mysterious gun pops out. The bullies eventually barge in, so Ara takes the gun to threaten them with. These guys laugh at the old broken down gun and approach him anyway. Ara fires the mysterious gun, but it ricochets all over the place, and the bullet just ends up hitting him in the head. The bullies think he is a goner, so they get out of there, but Ara eventually wakes up. The bullet seems to be lodged in his head, and a strange mist comes out of it. Just then, a small tornado forms, and a magical being called a Majin appears before Ara. This Majin's name is Senya, and he offers to grant Ara a wish. Ara is too terrified to even say a single word, so Senya quickly determines that he is some kind of wimp. Senya wonders if this is just another miss, but asks Ara again for his wish. Ara finally begins to understand what's happening, and Senya assumes that the boy will want wealth, honor, or power. Ara hardly needs any time to think about it, and instantly wishes to develop plot with the girl for the first time. Senya surprisingly understands why a young boy like him would wish for this, and offers to merge with Ara in order to make it happen. Ara leaves as he doesn't want to merge with anything, and quickly learns that no one else can see Senya. Back to the goons, they tell Madakara about Ara's pathetic display of his cowardice. Madakara knocks out a few pull-ups, while he explains that Ara's a gentle guy, and he hates fighting. Back at Ara's house, Senya complains about the stupid plot of some soap opera. Ara does some research and wonders if Senya could just be his imagination. Sometime later, Ara carves the stone he bought to make it into a gift for Maharo. Senya offers some advice on giving a better gift, but Ara explains that this stone will protect her for eternity. It's a love forever stone, and it will be the key to her heart, but Senya has no clue what this delusional kid is talking about. On Saturday, Ara tries to figure out why the bullet is still stuck in his head, but his caretaker doesn't seem to care about that at all, and just wants to know if he's going on a date. Ara gets real embarrassed, but this crazy lady just tells him to focus on getting as far as he can with the girl. As Ara waits for Maharo, he tells Senya not to talk to him, as his entire life is on the line. Maharo arrives and wonders who he was talking to, but Ara explains that he was just mumbling to himself. The two quietly enjoy some ice cream, but Senya reminds our boy to give her this stone thing. Ara strangely tells him to shut up, so he has to tell Maharo that it was nothing. Maharo somehow isn't put off by Ara's strange behavior, and is instead really glad that he came to the school. Senya thinks this is the perfect opportunity for our boy to make his move, since if he doesn't do it now, he never will. Senya demands that he not chicken out, so Ara proclaims that he will show Senya how it's done. Maharo hears some pretty strange noises coming from Ara, and it's because his stomach is going out of control. Ara tries to tell her it's nothing, even though he's clearly getting sick, and runs off to handle business. Once Ara finally finishes up, he reveals to Senya that this happens to him every single time. Ara shamefully returns to Maharo, but she is still somehow into Ara, and is just glad that he came back in time. Ara finally finds the courage to give her the stone he made, and she stares at how her name is carved poorly. Ara slowly declares how much he likes her, but he is interrupted by a gang. Their leader strolls up on some kind of machine, and he has such bad posture that he can't even see where he is going. He has his right-hand man to tell him when to stop, and he is so lazy that he must be kept from falling. This guy manages to talk all on his own though, and reveals that he is the leader of the Shiguma squad named Marito. Ara tries to get out of there with Maharo as quickly as possible, but Marito's vein pops out of his head. Maharo notices this and shockingly asks Ara to fight for her. Marito has gotten very serious however, and furious that Ara has dared to put his hands on his little sister. Up above, Greenhead has called Madakara to meet with him, and reveals that Ara is in big trouble. He wonders if Ara will make it out alive, and Madakara rushes off angrily to help his old friend. Down below, Ara takes a beating. Marito wants a fight, but Ara has already determined that his life will now end, as this guy is going to finish him. Marito continues to beat down on him, and demands that Ara get up. Something is seriously wrong with Maharo, as she admires her cool brother for losing his cool. Senya watches this beatdown, and listens as the gang points out that this will be Marito's 35th victim. Senya is disappointed to not have found what he was looking for once again. This is because even if he merged with Ara, he is certain that he would never be able to meet a certain person. Senya begins to leave, but is shocked when Ara wonders if everyone really thinks that he's just going to let his life end this way. Ara finally shows some determination to live, just as Marito is about to land a devastating blow. Senya becomes extremely excited and demands that Ara say what it is that he truly wishes for. Ara prepares to say what he wants, and we see that Madakara is rushing to him. Ara finally gets up and surprisingly still wishes that he developed plot with a girl for the first time. However, this time, Ara's body erupts with power, and Senya announces Buchigiri. Ara shockingly stops Marito's kick, and as he prepares a counterattack, it becomes clear that he has merged with Senya. Ara's bicep becomes so huge that it bursts from his shirt, and he lands a devastating punch on Marito. Ara absolutely destroys Marito just in time for Madakara to see, and Madakara thinks Ara looked just like a Honkai person. Ara has no clue what just happened, and the bargain basement genie is furious that Ara keeps wishing to develop plot. Ara was just being honest with his wish, but Senya points out that he's supposed to be wishing to get stronger. Their argument is broken up by Marito, who sends Ara flying into a lake. Madakara bumps into some guy named Jabashiri while rushing to Ara, and this Jabashiri guy acts like Madakara just became his worst enemy because of it. The crowd breaks up when they hear sirens, and Marito stares at the imprint on his stomach left behind by Ara's insanely powerful punch. This guy seems to be angry, but in reality he just proclaims that he's going to get Ara into the Shiguma gang. Afterwards, Ara wakes up from a nightmare, and Madakara praises him for the amazing punch he landed on Marito. Ara's brain eventually catches up with everything, and he just wants to know where Mahiro went. Madakara assumes she went home, and Ara determines that beating her brother must have been a bad idea. Broccolihead spots a Shiguma member spying on them from outside and chases after him. Madakara shows Ara the best friend stone Ara gave him a long time ago. Ara had told him that whenever he held it, it would make him stronger. Madakara doubts Ara still has his, but our boy isn't even listening. Madakara stops him from leaving and wonders if Ara started avoiding him because he wasn't strong enough. Ara says that it was so long ago that he doesn't even remember and just leaves. Senya appears wanting to fight everyone and tells Ara not to be sad since even though he lost today, he can still win tomorrow. Ara is quick to correct him by saying that he actually won against Marito, but Senya doesn't see it that way. Senya overhears some guys talking about a fight that's going on, and our fight-hungry genie drags Ara to go see it. They're too late when they arrive though, and Greenhead wonders what Ara's doing there. This dude accidentally touches the bullet lodged in Ara's head, and he's shocked by Senya. At home, Ara thinks about how in that one split second, he felt a ton of power surge through his body. It was like he was an entirely different person, and he wonders what Senya even is. Senya explains that he is a true Honkai person, or at the very least, the closest a man can get. The unimpressed Ara points out that Honkai people are just legends, even though there's a literal genie talking to him right now. And Senya points out that once they merged, Ara was able to throw a massive punch. However, he could only manage to throw one punch because they were only partially merged. Senya notices a mark on Ara's back, but doesn't say anything about it. Instead, he just informs Ara that he won't get any stronger unless they are one in body and soul. Senya wants them to be practically joined at the hip, but just the thought of that makes Ara want to puke. Senya points out the need for a man to merge, and our boy Ara knows that feeling all too well. At the Shiguma base, the guy named Jabashiri arrives to speak with their leader Marito. The first year student is told that he's way out of his league, but Marito wants to hear what the kid has to say. Jabashiri snacks on a meatball sub offered up by Marito, and explains that the pink-haired guy named Tat followed Madakara after the fight. Madakara is from the Minato gang, and he took Ara into his home. Jabashiri doesn't think they should recruit somebody like Ara, who seems to be involved with someone from Minato, but this just makes Marito consider recruiting Madakara as well. Jabashiri gets so angry that he bashes his head into a wall, and he reminds Marito that he will be his only successor. On his way to school, Ara finds that everyone is stunned to see that he was the one that punched Marito. Senya is impressed with how popular Ara is now, but Ara couldn't care less about being popular with all the guys, since it doesn't do anything to get him closer to developing plot. Senya wants to fight anyone for just looking at Ara funny, but Ara yells at him. This startles the crowd, who seems terrified of him, and Marito appears out of nowhere. Elsewhere, Greenhead tells Madakara that he should avoid Ara from now on, since he seems to have some kind of monkey on his back. Madakara actually reveals that he's planning to ask Ara to join Minato Kai, but his boys don't think their leader would ever allow that. Madakara reveals that Ken already wants to meet with Ara, and Zabu can't understand what Madakara sees in that kid. Madakara thinks that Ara's fist looked just like a Honkai person's, but Zabu just wonders why his friend takes the old fairy tale so seriously. Later at school, Marito rides up on his llama to ask Madakara if he knows where Ara is, and he reveals that he plans to recruit Ara to Shiguma. In class, Ara yells at Senya for annoying him as always, and must apologize to everyone who surely must think he is crazy by now. It's clear that Ara still has a crush on Maharo, but Senya reminds this simp that she had her brother beat him up. Ara's head is really in the clouds as he corrects Senya and explains that Marito was just testing his sister's new boyfriend. Senya is quick to point out that Ara started to run away at the first sight of Marito, but Ara explains that his legs just moved on their own. Just then, Marito's voice calls out to Ara, and Ara's legs move on their own again to get Ara out of there. Elsewhere, Maharo tells her brother that she wants to be with him always. She wonders if he is even listening, but we see that this psychotic girl is actually just talking to a bear version of Marito. Ara arrives, pretending like seeing her there was a complete coincidence, and he apologizes for what happened the day before. Even though Ara just ran from Marito, he tells Maharo that he wants to face off against her brother one more time to earn his respect. Ara thinks this will impress her, but Maharo shockingly explains that if he hurts her brother again, then she will end his life. Maharo tells him to take back the rock he gave her, but he explains that it's a love forever stone. She doesn't care though and just drops it. It shatters into a million pieces, and this jerk acts like it was an accident. Afterwards, Maharo asks her brother to walk home with her, but he's having a fight dream against Ara, and he punches his sister right in the face. This chick seriously has some screws loose in her brain, as she blames Ara for this. At home, Ara depressingly pieces together his sad-looking love forever stone. Senya tries to cheer him up, but the kid is hopeless. The next day, Madakara invites Ara to join Minato Kai. He explains how impressed he was with his punch on Marito, but he's interrupted by Jabashiri. Zabu is furious to see the pink-haired dude, but Jabashiri uses his favorite weapon to attack him. Ara wishes this whole thing would just blow over, but that doesn't seem to be the case as Madakara goes to confront Jabashiri. Jabashiri has business with Ara, but Madakara states that he will have to go through him first. This actually works out perfectly for Jabashiri though, as he explains that he has been waiting to slaughter Madakara for some time now. The two step outside, giving Ara immense relief, but Jabashiri tells him that he will be back for him. Outside, the two prepare to fight, and everyone cheers for battle. Senya tries to drag Ara to go watch, but he doesn't want to get mixed up in all that. Senya questions our boy's manhood, and he wonders if he's really just planning to leave his friend behind. This comment seems to affect Ara in more ways than one, as his stomach gargles and he must rush off to take care of business. The fight finally begins, and Madakara is amazed by Jabashiri's flexibility as he dodges all of his kicks. Just when Madakara thinks he will finally land one, Jabashiri simply dodges again. The crowd is extremely entertained, but Senya is left frustrated as he has to wait for our boy. The fight continues as both guys seem evenly matched. Madakara clearly leans heavily on his kicks to attack, but Jabashiri more than holds his own. Madakara gets excited when he finally manages to land a kick right on the back of Jabashiri's head, but Jabashiri just uses the opportunity to knock Madakara down. Madakara just manages to stop him from landing a devastating blow, but Jabashiri prepares to use his trusty headbutt to end the fight. Madakara doesn't even try to avoid it and decides to literally take it head on with a headbutt of his own. Their two heads collide, and the crowd goes silent in anticipation of what will happen next. The invisible Senya drags Ara to the fight just in time to see that Madakara had the more powerful headbutt. Jabashiri's out cold, and the crowd erupts with cheers. Senya is furious to have missed what seems to have been an awesome fight, and Ara just wonders what's wrong with Madakara. Madakara isn't moving an inch, and we see that it's because he's unconscious. When Madakara wakes up, he points out that Jabashiri's head is as hard as a rock. Ara compliments his old friend by saying that he didn't do so bad, but Madakara points out that it was nothing compared to Ara landing a punch on Marito. Before Ara can leave, Madakara asks him one more time to join Minato Kai. Madakara explains that he has gotten stronger, so he really thinks that they have a real shot at becoming Honkai people together now. Ara remains silent, and Senya is shocked that these two kids were actually training to become Honkai people. Ara makes his decision and reminds Madakara that he is done with all that stuff. Madakara makes one last effort to convince Ara to meet with their leader Ken, and explains that Ken is taking on Marito for the top spot. This proves to be the key to motivating our boy Ara, as he is intrigued by Ken wanting to fight Maharu's brother. Ara goes to meet with Ken, and Senya is glad to learn that Ara wants dreamt of becoming a Honkai person and taking the top spot. Madakara reveals that Ken was held back 3 times, so he is a bit older than them, and Ara is shocked to hear that he is 21 years old. The giant Ken finally arrives, and Ara thinks about how he is like an old man. This guy has an intense presence, and Senya is amazed by how strong he seems. Madakara begins formally introducing Ara to Ken, but Ara just gets right to the point, and he tells Ken that he wants to go 1 round with him. Senya couldn't be happier to see this side of Ara, and Ara thinks about his thought process. If he can beat an old guy who's on the same level as Maharu's brother, then he won't have to hurt her brother to show her how strong he is. Ara gives himself a good pat on the back as he's some kind of simp genius. Everyone prepares to watch Ara fight Ken, but they all think the kid is just crazy. Madakara pleads with Ken not to do this, but it's too late. Ara tells Senya that it's time, and Senya is just glad that Ara has finally discovered his true wish. Senya assumes that he finally wants to wish for more power, but Ara once again wishes to develop some plot for the first time. Immense power flows through his body once again, and Senya proclaims Bujigiri. Ara's arm grows twice the size again, tearing his sleeve to pieces, and he lands an immense punch that sends Ken flying. Everyone is of course stunned, and Madakara realizes that Ara really is the one. Our boy Ara strikes a victory pose, but Senya's just upset that all Ara thinks about is developing plot. Ara doesn't think there's anything more important, but Senya points out that getting stronger is. Ara looks like a lunatic as he fights with the invisible Senya, and the furious Ken sends him flying through the ceiling. Ara looks like he might not be alive anymore, and Ken just stares at the huge indentation that Ara's punch left behind. The other Minato Kai members blame Madakara for bringing trouble, and they become terrified when it seems like Ken is becoming enraged. It turns out that he is actually laughing, and Ken writes that he couldn't be happier. At school, Ara's still feeling the repercussions of the fight, but Senya just wants to go another round with that guy. Ara gets real cocky after winning 2 fights in a row, and points out how it's like he has no limits. Senya quickly brings him back to reality though, as he points out that he technically lost again. Just then, Marito's voice can be heard approaching. In typical Ara fashion, he prepares to jump out the window again, but Marito is 1 step ahead, as he comes crashing through said window. Marito has finally caught him, and he asks Ara to join their team. Ara tries to explain that he would only be a burden if he joined, and he would respectfully like to decline. However, his simp brain takes over, as Maharu signals that she would love for him to join. She speaks to Ara's simp heart without a single word, and he agrees to join Shiguma. Just then, Madakara arrives. He's excited to reveal that Ken has agreed to let Ara join Minato Kai, but he is of course shocked to see him talking to Marito. Marito tells him that he's too late, and Ara has already chosen to join Shiguma. Madakara tries to remind Ara that they were supposed to become Honkai people together, but Marito reiterates that he just joined Shiguma. If Madakara wants Ara to join his group, then he will have to take him by force. Elsewhere, the dudes in white are terrified since they don't have enough money to meet their quota, and their leader knocked 3 teeth out of the last guy who failed him. The one they call their emperor explains that Marito's trying to take on the head of Minato Kai, and he decides to find a way to make them settle it. He thinks that's a great idea, and his subordinates wonder who this crazy guy is talking to. We learned that the Minato Kai and Ikki Union once fought the deadliest, most famous battle for the top spot at Ichizu High. Then, the 43rd leader of Minato Kai named Domin absolutely destroyed Ikki Union's boss with 1 blow. Just when Ikki Union's fate seemed to be sealed, Marito appeared. With Marito as the leader, Ikki Union was rebranded as Shiguma Squad, and it immediately regained its former glory. This explanation is given by Tatsu, and he is enthusiastic about Shiguma's plans to take the top spot. Senya is on board, but Ara is completely disinterested. He joined for all the wrong reasons, and would rather not waste his youth fighting. Marito arrives to take him somewhere, but when Ara wonders where they are going, he is met by a real ugly face from Jabashiri. Marito receives a call as all preparations are ready, and Jabashiri tells Ara not to let the situation go to his head. Marito reveals that they are going to Ara's welcoming party, and they will be spoiling him with debauchery. Ara thinks about what kind of debauchery, but he reveals that he is the type that can only share his heart with 1 girl. Just then, they find some guys in white robbing some poor kid as they desperately need to reach their quota. Marito breaks it up and Ara recognizes them as the ones who robbed him. They are the NG Boys, and their group's leader is Shindo, a guy who was exiled from Minato Kai. The NG Boys pull out some weapons, and Ara realizes how serious this is, as those blades could end someone's life. The guys fear that they have no other choice, since their emperor will take their lives if they don't do as he says. Marito instantly takes these fools out and tells them to send a message to Shindo. The message is to not get too carried away. Senya is amazed by Marito, and Jabashiri points out that that wasn't even the tiniest bit of his strength. Elsewhere, Mahito calls her brother and invites him to some places, but eventually realizes that she was just leaving a message. Madakara tries to talk to her about Ara, but she doesn't even acknowledge his existence. Madakara grabs her and tells her that he won't let go until she talks to him. Mahito gets real serious to tell him to take his dirty hands off of her, but he can't hear her. Mahito makes him hear her with the crazy loud scream, and she runs off while calling him a gross blockhead. At Ara's welcoming party, Marito tells everyone that Ara has a powerful punch, but Ara just wonders where all the girls are. Marito then announces the start of their welcoming party tradition game called Look That Away. The winner will get a 1-year supply of Hot Pockets. Marito has everyone party up, and the crazy game starts. Ara is stunned as this crazy game seems to just be rock, paper, scissors with a violent twist. Senya points out that the debauchery he spoke of is actually depunchery. Marito declares that everyone that turned must sit, and he wonders if Ara has figured out the rules. It's very simple as long as they don't lose at rock, paper, scissors. The game continues and these dudes just keep punching each other in the face. Eventually, there are only a couple guys left standing, and Marito wonders if Ara is ready to give it a try. Ara would rather just observe, but Marito wants him to show off his crazy strong punch. Ara is up and Marito can't wait to face off against him in the final round. Ara tells Senya to merge with him, but Senya refuses. He would like to help, but he doesn't think Ara would really be satisfied if he only won because of him. Jabashiri is glad to finally get his shot at taking out Ara, but a guy named Oda wants to go first. Everyone whispers about this guy because he is the leader of the special attack unit, and Ara's really unlucky to have to go against him. Ara wonders if this is the end of his life, and he begins to regret joining Shiguma. Senya finally agrees to help, but Oda wonders who Ara is talking to. Tatsu arrives to be the referee, and Ara realizes that if he doesn't win at rock, paper, scissors, Oda will probably kill him with his punch. Tatsu begins the match, but the first match is a tie. Ara loses the second one though, so he tells Senya that he is counting on him. Ara is terrified as Oda prepares his attack, but Senya makes Ara take the punch right to the face. Oda's hand is injured, causing him to pull back, and everyone wonders what kind of crazy strong skull Ara has. This is the first time anyone other than Marito has taken a punch from Oda. The force of Oda's punch can even smash concrete, so everyone is left in awe as they wonder how Ara's skull could be strong enough to withstand it. Ara is announced the winner, and Senya celebrates Buchigiri style. Oda tells Tatsu that he will be going to the restroom, and we see that his fist is all messed up. Jabashiri is next up, and he has been waiting for this very moment. Ara doesn't think his skull can take any more, but the match is already about to begin. Tatsu starts the match, and Ara manages to win. He doesn't even want to win though, so he decides to throw a weak punch. Jabashiri thinks about how Ara can't really be that strong, but he is surprised by the strange look on his face. Ara turns out to just be looking at some girls, and ends up landing the weakest looking punch. Tatsu is completely stunned though, and points out that Ara just used a legendary technique, one of the 7 deadly blows passed down by an ancient Chinese fighter. When a fighter releases all the energy in their body, the attack uses centrifugal force to strike sharply with all the momentum of a heavy whip. With a strange turn of bad luck, Tatsu announces that Ara is the winner, and Marito quickly arrives to face him. Senya is hyped about it, so Ara tells him to quiet down and apologizes when Marito thinks he was talking to him. This gets Marito even more ready to fight, and Ara realizes that his life will now end. Ara doesn't think his skull will survive, but Senya tells our boy not to give up. Marito then explains why he has taken a liking to Ara, and it's because he was able to feel his honkai when he punched him. Tatsu starts the match, and the super intense Marito prepares to show rock, paper, or scissors. However, just then, Ara's stomach starts acting up, and he's allowed to go handle it. Unfortunately, when he arrives at the bathroom, he finds an unconscious Oda. Marito is furious and demands that the person who did this reveal themselves. A Minato Kai sleeve was found next to Oda, so the others want to get revenge. However, Marita knows that this isn't Domen's style. Jabashiri is sure that one of the Minato Kai did it, but Marito points out that some nobody from that gang wouldn't be able to do this much damage to Oda. Afterwards, Tatsu explains the history between Oda and Marito. When they first met in middle school, they started calling themselves the God Kings, and they always fought side by side. They are war buddies, and the only person in all of Honkai City who can defeat Oda is Domen. However, Marito knows better than anyone that Domen wouldn't pull shady stuff like what happened to Oda. Marito now has a decision to make. Does he avenge his comrade, or trust that his arch-rival wouldn't do something like this? Senya admires their close friendship, but Ara doesn't want to hear about it. Afterwards, Ara finds Mahito at his house restaurant, and his mom is doing her best to eavesdrop without being noticed. Mahito thanks him for joining Shiguma for her, and Ara explains that his head got smacked real bad because of it. He considers quitting, but this crazy chick smacks him right across the face. Mahito points out that things haven't even started yet, and she is sure that her brother is going to ask Ara to take over for him and Shiguma. Mahito wants him to defeat her brother and tells him to do it for her. This little succubus does her heart move, which once again pierces our boy's soul, but Senya doesn't think it's anything special. As Mahito leaves, Ara yells with determination that he will go for it, and his mom just wonders how far he got with the girl. Mahito thinks about how once Marito graduates from Shiguma, all his attention will go to her. That night, Ara does some serious shadow boxing and wonders how he can get his merge rate up with Senya. Senya is surprised by this kind of talk, but Ara explains that he has to become Marito's successor. In order to do that, they will have to merge. Senya couldn't be happier since Ara is turning into a fine man. Senya has our boy play the flute, but Ara wonders if it's really going to improve their merge rate. Senya explains that they are harmonizing, and he notices that the strange symbol on Ara's back is becoming more defined. Ara wonders what incentive Senya has for merging, but he just says that it's natural instinct. Elsewhere, Jabashiri runs into some Minato Kai guys, and Tatsu reminds him that it will be trouble if they take them down now. Jabashiri listens to his friend, even though he is clearly enraged, but the Minato Kai guys call them spineless. The triggered Jabashiri confronts them about ambushing Oda, and starts beating them up when they act clueless. Tatsu manages to pull him away, but Jabashiri vows to get vengeance for Oda. These Minato guys have the worst luck, since once Jabashiri leaves, the NG guys arrive to take them out. Their leader seems very pleased with himself, as he is plotting something devious. The next day, during a sad excuse for gym class, students are told to pair up and stretch. Ara pairs up with Matakara, so he gets his back cracked, and Matakara reminds him that they always used to be partners in elementary school. Ara has another memory from their pleasant childhood, but something else is clearly bothering him, and he tells Matakara that he doesn't remember. Ara does his best to crack Matakara's back, and Matakara wonders what Mahito told him. Ara explains that she told him that he has to become Marito's successor, but he collapses under the weight of his much bigger friend. Just then, Matakara is informed that the Shiguma took out 2 of their guys from Minato Kai. Matakara arrives to find that his fellow Minato members have been tied to trees. Greenhead is furious as he is certain that the Shiguma are the only ones who would do this, and he refuses to let them get away with it. A trio of Minato members find some Shiguma guys and instantly begin a fight, and we see that the real culprits watch from a distance. Afterwards, Marito and the other Shiguma arrive to find that the Minato have beaten up their boys. Marito finds a picture of him and Oda, and it states that Marito is next. At the Minato Kai base, Matakara explains to Domen that their 2 members that were tied to the trees had to be taken to the hospital as their ribs were broken. Just then, the guards can be heard getting beat up, and Marito arrives. Marito explains that he has a debt to repay and demands that Domen show himself. Domen hears him loud and clear, so he appears to confront Marito. Marito instantly attacks, but Matakara stops him. Marito sends him flying, and Matakara just asks that he tell them what the problem is. Jabashiri thinks they should already know, but Broccolihead points out that they were the ones that ganged up on their guys. Jabashiri tells them what they did, but no one really knows what's going on. Things get even more tense, but Matakara tells his boys to calm down. Marito shows them the armband that they found, but Matakara explains that no one from Minato Kai would do something so cowardly. Marito is still skeptical, so he says that if it wasn't them, then they need to bring the real culprits to the Coliseum tomorrow. If they don't, then Marito will declare war. Marito tells Doman that they will settle things once and for all and leaves. The tense moment ends, but the real trouble is just about to begin. At school, Senya is glad to see that Ara is taking his training seriously. Of course, Ara thinks about Maharo and promises to defeat her brother for her. However, Ara remembers how she threatened to end his life if he hurt her brother. This means Ara must defeat Marito, but he can't leave a mark on his face. Ara doesn't think it makes much sense, but Senya reminds him that he could just punch the guy right in his gut. Ara goes right back to shadow boxing as he ignores everyone and eventually arrives at the Shiguma base. The others don't share his enthusiasm, and Tatsu catches our boy up on the war. Everyone is getting riled up to destroy Minato Kai, but Tatsu knows that it will only be a battle without honor or humanity. Revenge will only lead to more revenge, and they will try to wash blood away with more blood. Ara is seemingly at a loss, but Senya couldn't be more excited. Marito seems very focused, and it's because he will finally get to settle his beef with Doman. Back with Madakara, his buddies notice that he doesn't seem interested in a battle. Madakara explains that Minato Kai has always been about man-to-man combat and about pursuing strength. He stares at his brother's uniform and thinks back to when his brother was taken away to juvie. His brother reminded him that Honkai people never run away and encouraged him to keep working hard to become a Honkai person. Madakara is determined to keep his promise to his brother and to the Minato Kai that he cared about so much. His brother was Minato Kai's legendary 42nd leader, and they all look up to him. Just then, Madakara leaves suddenly and explains that he needs to go do something. Goldilocks notices that Zabu hasn't taken his jacket off in a while, but now that he has, his armband is missing. Zabu explains that some crows took it away while he was drying it, but Goldilocks seems suspicious. He isn't too smart, however, and just attacks some nearby crows. A look into the past shows when Zabu was found by a member of NG. His name was Shindo, and Zabu recognized him as the one that NG referred to as the Emperor. This guy was banished from Minato 6 months ago, but Zabu pointed out that this guy is still acting tough. Shindo wanted to be friends, but Zabu refused and called him a small fry. Zabu's rude gesture caused Shindo to lose it as he beat Zabu relentlessly. Shindo didn't take his insults lightly, so he took Zabu's armband and pointed out that he just got beat up by a small fry. Zabu can hardly live with the embarrassment now and refuses to tell anyone. Elsewhere, Senya is excited to get home so Ara can do more training. Ara points out that training won't be necessary anymore since Marito and Doman will be fighting each other. Senya isn't following, so Ara explains it to his genie-like friend. If Marito wins, then he will have achieved all he has ever desired. Our boy has a crazy imagination as he thinks Marito will just leave Shiguma to him, and Ara imagines himself telling his future brother-in-law that he can count on him. On the other hand, if Doman were to win, then Marito will have no choice but to leave Shiguma to him. Maharo will fall into despair, and Ara will just have to be there to console her. Ara gets home and finds that Madakara has been waiting for him. Madakara wonders if Ara is planning to fight in the upcoming war, but Ara just says it will depend on the situation. Madakara pleads with Ara to stop Marito and explains that none of the Minato guys would ambush someone like they're being accused of. He is sure that the Shiguma guys wouldn't either, and he has a real bad feeling about all of this. Madakara points out that fighting like this isn't what Honkai people do, but Ara says that it's none of his business. Madakara has faith that Ara can stop the war, but Ara just gets frustrated. He tells Madakara to stop talking like a little kid, and Senya can tell that he gets really worked up when Madakara is around. Madakara explains that Ara always stayed by his side and thinks back to their childhood. Ara once showed him one of his friendship stones and used it to stamp his buddy. This was the best friend stone Ara gave him, and they both agreed to become Honkai people together. Madakara declares that he still wants them to become Honkai people together, but something is clearly holding Ara back. He demands that Madakara leave and tells him that all that is ancient history. Senya wonders what happened between him and his old best friend, as he can tell that something big happened. Ara tells him to shut up, but just ends up hitting himself in the head. Madakara returns home with his friendship stone and counts down the days until his brother returns home. He has no idea what to do and wishes that his brother would hurry. The next day, the crazy Maharo eats with her bear brother and Ara joins her. Ara is sure that Marito will take the top spot today, and he will ask Ara, Marito's trusted companion, to take over Shiguma. Maharu has turned into a real jerk as she realizes that once Marito wins and graduates, she won't need Ara anymore. Ara wonders what she means, but they are interrupted by Matakara. Ara says that he doesn't want to talk, but Matakara actually wants to speak with Maharu. She agrees to go since it's about Marito, but Ara tries to warn her about the Minato guys. Ara fears that Matakara might be asking her out, and Senya doesn't help ease his concern by saying that Matakara is a lot manlier than him. Maharu tells Matakara to get to the point, so he just comes out and asks her to stop the war. She's insulted by the request, but Marito warns that both sides are acting bloodthirsty. At this rate, they might even end each other's lives, so she should be worried about Marito. Maharu doesn't think Marito would listen to her anyway, so Matakara asks her to persuade Ara to do it instead. Maharu doesn't think Ara could handle such a task, but Matakara is certain that he can. Matakara stops her from leaving just like last time, so she tells him to get his dirty hands off of her. She prepares to scream again, but this time he stops her. Ara thinks they are hugging though, and passes out. Matakara is determined to keep his promise to his brother and protect Minato Kai, but he lets her go in case she couldn't breathe. Maharu is surprised to hear that Matakara has a brother, and he explains that he should be able to see him soon. Afterwards, Maharu walks right up to our boy and tells him to go make her brother stop the war. This manipulative chick uses her heart move, and our boy is helpless against it. Moments later though, Ara realizes that he is almost out of time. He chickens out of asking Marito to stop the war, and ends up telling him that it seems like it will be fun. Ara thinks about how he can't go through with it, and Marito decides to try and feed him. Ara is still pretty spineless at this point in the anime, and downs the piping hot burrito in one bite. Marito then explains that he eats and eats, but his hunger is never satisfied. At the Minato base, the bloodthirsty group vows to end all Shiguma members' lives, but Zabu is still struggling with his secret. Matakara sees that time is up, and Doman arrives. Matakara tries to tell him that Ara is convincing Marito to stop the war as they speak, but Doman has already decided. He uses writing as always, and declares that it's time to settle things. Everyone heads out for battle, but Zabu notices that Matakara stayed behind. The guilt has overwhelmed him, so Zabu tells Matakara that he has something to say. Elsewhere, Ara sulks as he couldn't find the courage to ask Marito, and he is sure that Maharu will be done with him. Senya riles him up and reminds Ara that Maharu and Matakara really seem to hit it off. Senya straightens him up, but Ara lands right in front of Shindo. Shindo insults him a bunch while telling Ara to go home, but Ara strikes back by calling him Four Eyes. Ara is under a lot of pressure, and he lets out his frustration on this guy. Back at the Minato base, Zabu reveals that Shindo was actually the one that took down Oda. Shindo set all this up, but Zabu takes all the blame. Matakara is just glad that he told him, and declares that he will be leaving. He doubts that Marito will believe the truth, so he shockingly reveals that he will go straight to Shindo instead. Back with Ara, he is taking an absolute beating from Shindo. Senya doesn't like how this guy is using a weapon, so he demands that Ara show him the results of their training. Ara is on board and once again wishes to develop plot for the first time. Senya declares Buchigiri as they merge together, but Shindo is certain that he can still win. He is shocked, however, when his weapon has no effect and Ara lands a powerful punch. Our boy isn't done though, as he can now throw a second punch. Our heroes celebrate their victory, and Senya points out that their merge rate is going up because of his training. Shindo is real messed up with a serious dent in his face, and he remembers this pain he feels. Our boys are stunned when Shindo gets up, but Senya is more terrified. He can't believe what he is seeing, and it's another Majin named Ichiya. Thanks for watching my recap. Sign up to my free newsletter if you want to show some support to the channel. Link is in the description.